Heidi, so recording. This is, I guess, Cooking with Casey. Isn't that what we called this?
Love it. College Cooking with Casey.
Okay, there we go. College Cooking with Casey. So I'm representing Preston here. So go Danes.
Go Danes.
But, it's really fun whenever I'm talking about the colleges and jumping in on Hannah's presentation during interview day. They're like, "Oh gosh, is Preston the Gryffindor of the Harry Potter houses?" I was like, no, we're really just having our Cedric Diggory year, and we're really the Hufflepuff. We feed everyone. So, this is kind of a good thing for a Preston person to be doing, I guess. But we are going to get started, and here's the thing. I save old spice jars. So this is actually one of the full-size ones from Costco, but it's really good because we're making taco seasoning, so I didn't even have to change the lid, but it's completely empty right now, and I'm showing you how to make your own spice packet. Now, you could go by the measurements on the recipe that I sent you, but if you noticed, you could also break that down into parts, because there are 2 parts chili powder, which is half a cup of chili powder in the recipe, and 1 part of everything else. So if you just go by that, as long as you're getting bottles that are the same size, you are good to go. Hey, Avery, welcome to joining us. We're just now getting started, so you're good to go here. And y'all stop, ask me questions at any point. My cameraman's trying to get the phone out of the thing. But y'all, I'm just gonna make the taco seasoning. What I like about this one is that since I do have some issues with high blood pressure, this one has no salt. So I can completely control the amount of salt that's going in my dish. So I'm literally just taking 2 parts, so 2 things of chili powder. And I will show you here. So this is a little versatile. You can change this up as you like it. I'm only doing about 1.5 of these because I'm going to turn around and substitute a little bit of this chipotle chili powder that adds a little smoked flavor to it, and it's pretty hot as well. I'm going to add the rest of that down in there. It's leftover from some previous recipes. But we've got our chili powder in there. Next is our cumin. And I've already checked to make sure that was about the same amount. It's a good way to use up small amounts of old spices and everything as well. And then garlic powder. Which smells really good. You can't go wrong with garlic powder. Little onion powder. Which, I don't know about you guys, some spices at different places are getting hard to find. Again.
Yeah, where do you get your spices, Casey?
So the only thing I was able to find at Lidl today was the onion powder. Everything else came from Aldi. So, and literally I was having to go at the last minute to do this because, of course, Thanksgiving was last week. All right, but that's the whole recipe. Now, if you like cilantro, which I quite frankly can't stand it, I think it tastes like soap, you can add that to this. If you are going to be making this with beef or maybe with a wetter chicken instead of we're just going to saute some chicken like Moe's does, you could add a little bit of cornstarch to this as a thickener. So if it's got anything that you're cooking with some liquid, you might add a little thickener. And that's about the only real difference other than the salt between this and the little packets that you get at the store, which I don't think I have any. Oh, no, that's Thai spices. So I don't have any, but they're basically like a half-ounce packet to season a pound of meat, and you pay 50 cents a piece. Well, this was about $2.50 worth of spices that I'm going to be able to season a lot more than 50 cents worth of meat, and you just shake it. And you'll have to shake it up each and every time that you use it because it will settle a little bit, and things like the oregano will stay up at the top. But there you go. That is your mix that you've got for your spices. Super easy, and we're already done. Hey, Susan. Now.
Hi.
Next thing we're going to get going on this, and Susan, we just made our spice mix. So if you're following along and wanting to jump in, you can go ahead and do that while we're doing the next part. The next thing we're going to start is our rice, because it's the next thing that takes some time. And you can use the rice of your choice, but I'm using, in this case, some white rice, even though the recipe calls for brown rice, because it happened to be what I had on hand. And if you're with brown rice, stick with the recipe that's on there. And it's for every cup or every measurement of brown rice, it's 2 cups of liquid. I'm doing white rice, so I'm going to cut that down to 1.5 cups. So I'm doing three measurements. It doesn't really matter if it's cups or what your measurement is, as long as it's consistent. In this case, it's just the measure that came with our rice cooker. And then you use the same thing to measure your liquid. In this case, this is some turkey broth that I made with the carcass from our turkey at Thanksgiving. You could do a veggie broth if you're wanting to stay vegetarian or vegan on this. But it's entirely up to you. So I did 3 cups of the other. 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, and I'll have a little bit left over. And then I'm going to get my spices in there. Now, one thing I'm going to do is, because I'm using chicken broth, I'm not going to add my salt. So the recipe calls for salt. We're going to leave that out because the chicken broth itself already has some salt in it.
I said it was turkey broth.
Or turkey broth, chicken broth, same thing, Michael. Almost. I'm adding my cumin. I'm going to give that a little stir with my spoon here. And if you're cooking with lime juice out of a bottle, at that point, go ahead and start your rice cooker or turn your rice on, get it to a boil. You know, it's good stuff. I use this all the time, the lime juice out of a bottle. But if you are doing with a fresh lime, then a good idea is to take your microplane, if you've got it. If you don't have one, you can use a paring knife and go around the outside, but that's a little bit more difficult. But just grate that right into there. And all you're doing is you're getting that outside edge and the rind and putting it in there. Now, the reason we do this is because that's where all your oils are in this lime. So that's got a ton of flavor in it. That's the same with oranges and lemons and everything. So you'll see different recipes will call for grating the rind. You don't want to go into the white part. That's the pith. That's bitter. It's nasty. You just want to get that outside part.
So question for med students, because I know you probably cook every night and have a big family. But what is your advice as far as like single-use appliances like a rice cooker or like a microplaner? I mean, at what point in our financial future should we be investing in things like that?
So these make great things to ask for holidays. Now, rice cooker is more than making rice. I kind of take the Alton Brown approach when it comes to appliances, and they shouldn't have just one use. So I'll cook any and all grains in this. It's rice, quinoa, farro. I'll even use it to heat up just other things. As long as it's got a minimal amount of liquid or liquid that's supposed to cook out, a rice cooker will work for it. Because that's how they work. They cook and keep a boiling temperature until the heat starts to rise quickly. And when the heat starts to rise really quickly in there, it knows that the liquid's gone and it stops cooking. So it's really good for like time things. I wouldn't use it for something like couscous or something like that, because that'll burn your couscous. But you can also find rice cookers at the thrift stores and things. I think I paid a couple dollars for this rice cooker. And I've got a really big one I use. It's a 10 cup for when I'm having people over. And I know I only paid $2 for that because I got it on half price sale at a thrift store. Now, a microplane, that's another story. That makes a good gift. You don't need one. It's really great for if you want to use fresh nutmeg. It's really great if you want to finely grate a hard cheese like some Parmesan or something like that. It's great for doing what I just did with it, but it's not necessary. That's just kind of a fun thing to have around, and I enjoy using it. And you know, a cheese grater, a lot of them will have a small block on the side if you've got one of the block cheese graters, and
Mhm.
use the fine grater for that and do the same exact thing I just did.
Okay. Thank you.
Other than that, you know, again, I'm not a big fan of single-use things to begin with, but if you're going to start getting gadgets, wait until someone else is buying them for you or you actually have an income. So not while you're in med school. You know, when you're in med school, you need a couple of basics. You need pretty much what I'm going to show you to use tonight, with the exception of that microplane. So let's get to it. We've got our rice cooking, because that's the thing that takes the longest. We've got our spice mix done, because, you know, that's just to get it out of the way. And now I can actually get rid of all of these bottles. And if you have some other spice mix you're going to use, by all means, or you're going to make, by all means, keep some of these other bottles. Those small ones, I don't tend to make my spice mixes in a small enough batch to save that size. But I've got one, this one for taco seasoning. I've got one I do for my brisket seasonings. You know, entirely up to you. So next we're going to work on what chef would call our mise en place, which is, you know, really fancy term. But when you're trying to understand it, it's to get our mess in place, to help you remember what that is. So we're just going to cut up all of our vegetables. You know, I know the first step of the recipe after mixing your rice and stuff is to cut the chicken, but chicken is obviously a contaminant that we want to cut very last. We won't cut anything on the cutting board after that. So we're going to cut all our vegetables. We're going to put it in little bowls just to get it done and out of the way. And we are going to start with the most basic thing. And it's the basic thing that everyone doesn't do right. And I know this from teaching culinary medicine. I know this from friends cooking and everything. So what we see all the time is when people pick up a knife, they do this, and they put that finger right on the top. And even my son's sitting here shaking his head at me. And when you do that, it feels like you've got a lot of stability, but you're going to get a lot of back and forth on that knife. It's a good way to have the knife fall over on you. What you need to do every time you pick up your knife is you pinch the blade right up at the top. And from there, you just wrap your hand around that grip. So you've got a pinch handle there. You've got total control. That knife can't go anywhere I don't want it to. And I wrap my handle around for some extra stability. And it's really that simple. That alone will help you a lot with any knife cuts or any issues, or if, like I used to do, you would cut yourself from time to time. Holding a knife properly, I don't think I've ever cut myself. You know, the next thing I'll show you in a second is the claw, but we're going to break this down into a more manageable size. So I'm just going to cut the ends off of that. Take the outer skin off. And this is a massive onion, but that's fine because I like onions and they're really high in vitamin C. I'm going to toss the scraps in my compost bowl. They don't need to see that, Michael.
I wasn't changing the camera direction.
All right. So there's a few different schools of thought with an onion. I didn't do it this way because it doesn't matter how pretty it looks since I'm cooking at home. So all I'm going to do is kind of a modified sunburst. The sunburst, you would have left the bulb in on there. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Chloe. And I see someone else here. Oh, that's Susan still. And I would have left the bulb in on here. That's the end with all the roots and everything. And I would have cut the other end off, and then I would have still peeled it. And you could have then gone almost all the way through. And that holds everything in place. And there I am. I was showing you bad knife skills. And from there, I can chop it this way. And it's holding everything in place, so I don't really have to worry about that. But then I end up with this wasted part back here, which I can come back and I can cut again. As I make a mess. I should have used a bigger cutting board. Or, you know, if you really don't care how your onion looks all that much, go ahead and cut both ends off. and you can just go across. And with a fajita bowl, I actually like a larger slice of an onion, so it's got a little bite to it. So we're gonna do both tonight and just toss it in there. Get our onion out of the way. We've still got our grip on the knife the proper way, unlike what I was showing a second ago. Next, our tomatoes. And I've already washed all these vegetables. So, if you haven't done that, go ahead. Unless it says pre-washed, assume you need to wash your vegetables. Just whatever type of tomato you have or whatever toppings you have, kind of slice those up as you want them. Hey, Holly.
Hello.
You and Eleanor cooking with us tonight?
I just got her down for bed, fortunately.
Wow, 6:30 bedtime.
Yeah, she's kind of a early bird in the nighttime. Does that make sense? She goes to bed very early and sleeps in very late. So I hit the baby lottery.
No kidding.
Just rub it in, Holly. Just rub it in.
You'll get there, Susan.
That's hilarious.
I would agree. You totally hit the lottery, Holly.
You really did. My husband just heard you, and he just goes, "Who is this person that I hate?"
It's Eleanor. It's not me.
She is a sweetheart. That's
Can't
good.
hate a baby.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how much the baby's keeping you up. All right. So here's a quick technique on the bell peppers. Stand it up and just slice right down the side. Turn it, do the same thing. And so you're getting what chef would call 4 planks. And then I'm also going to come down here on the bottom. I'm going to cut the bottom off because that's useful too. We don't want to waste anything because heaven knows how expensive these things are. We're going to cut out the pith here on the bell peppers. Be careful not to cut yourself. You could also just kind of rip it out with your hands, but it's not as pretty when you do that.
So it looks like you're using your chef's knife for most things. Are you a paring knife man ever, or do you just stick with your chef's knife?
I am a one knife kind of person. And I've got a few other knives that I will use for very specialized things. Like, if you notice, if you go to my YouTube page, which, hey, plug for my YouTube page. It's the Med School Money Guy. I've got a video on how to break down a turkey, and I've got a much thinner knife than this. Actually, it's this one right here. It's a kind of a modified chef's knife that's about an 8-inch, but much skinnier. Works good for boning. But other than that, this chef's knife, or in this case, a Santoku knife, which is got a curved blade to it and has the little divots out of the side, so that supposedly things wouldn't stick to it as much. Yeah, might help, it might not. This is my go-to knife, and I use it for pretty much everything. All right, so I broke down the bell pepper. Some people will say flip it over here so that you're cutting through the skin every time. The skin, quite frankly, is harder to cut through on these things. Keep it on the back. And then, when you're putting your hand down, take your hand and roll it forward. You're making a claw. And so you roll that forward, and you're just cutting there. And if you keep the knife against your fingers, I'm not even actually looking at it right now. If you keep the knife blade against your fingers, you are not going to cut yourself because there's no way left to cut yourself. You can't even reach your fingers. Now, one of the secrets, though, is to take your pinky and your thumb and tuck them back behind the other fingers, because those do have a tendency of getting out there.
Casey, how often do you sharpen your knives?
So here's the question of what you mean by sharpen. Now, if you're talking like an actual take it to a whetstone, or take it somewhere to get sharpened.
Yeah, definitely not talking about that. I didn't know you could do that.
Okay. So that's truly sharpening. Sharpening is something that's going to actually take away part of your blade. But if you're talking the use of what you would call a sharpening steel or a diamond steel, I do that about every 1 or 2 times that I'm using the knife. Yeah. Declan, do you like tomatoes? Okay. So I'll use this about every time. And what you're going to, or every other time that I'm using the knife, unless I'm doing something really hard, like a bunch of carrots, then it'll be every time or even halfway through. And then the secret with these is, of course, this one doesn't have a guard. It's actually my great-grandfather's that I was bequeathed. But just come down. You barely want any clearance on the back. It's basically a finger's breadth on the back. You're going to come down. And just back and forth on it a whole bunch, down the whole length of the blade. And all that does is that over time, your knife blade that starts out kind of like that gets all wobber-jawed, and this brings it back into alignment. But when you're shaving it, or when you're actually sharpening it and taking it to a whetstone, it'd almost be like if you were looking at the example here, you were cutting off my fingertips and then using my knuckles further down to be the next sharp part of the blade. Always, every time, after you're done with the steel, wipe it off just in case there's any metal filaments there. But I do that pretty often, and what you'll find is if you do this, you hardly ever have to actually sharpen your blade because it stays sharp. You know, saves you a lot of time in the long run. And a dangerous knife is a dull knife. You know, the cuts are worse. I'm sure you guys all understand that, having gone through EMT and your medical training. A jagged cut's going to be way worse than a nice clean cut. And dull knives tend to rip, as well as you're using extra pressure. So you're using a dull knife, and then the knife finally cuts into whatever you're cutting, and it slips. And there goes a finger or something else. All right, so we got most of our stuff cut up in place. Hey, Shakti.
Hi.
How's everyone's cooking going so far? Pretty good, pretty bad, awful?
I am just focusing all of my attention on these 2 camera angles, Casey, I must say.
Yeah, so you've got my computer for one, and you've got my son as my cameraman on the other.
Is it Michael? You're doing great, Michael. Thank you.
Yep, Michael, my oldest. And then Declan was down here hunting for tomatoes earlier. That's his favorite snack. He had some cherry tomatoes in the backyard, and he would just come up eating them. It's like, no, we haven't washed those yet. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you is with a head of iceberg lettuce. This is an old restaurant trick. You could cut it in half and then decore it with the knife. But why? You could instead slam it down on the core end. And what that does is it basically breaks this core out so that it comes right out. So now I don't have anything connecting all those leaves together. And we would do that when we were having to process, like, gosh, tons and tons of these at the restaurant. And now I just do it every time. And then you can slice this however thin you want. But iceberg, I really like a thin slice. And the other good thing about this recipe is you put whatever toppings you want. You don't like iceberg? Don't use iceberg. You know, use a bib lettuce, use spinach, use watercress, and whatever you want to use. Use arugula if you like that nasty stuff, or endive if you like it bitter. Entirely up to you.
Hey, Casey,
I know a lot of people like it.
can you go back like a minute when you said when you worked at the restaurant? Can you just explain that a little bit more? I'm very curious.
Oh, about the working on the lettuce heads?
Like, no, did you work at a restaurant for a time?
I worked. I worked at a place called The Clock. We actually have a bunch of those up here in Greenville. It's kind of like Pete's. And then after that, I worked for a catering company for about 6 years as well. So mostly doing front of house stuff, but I helped out in the kitchen as well a little bit, and I do my own catering on the side. So, you know, for everyone that came from that background, you'll be able to have it. all have my barbecue. And I've done that a few other times. It's like,
That's awesome. Thanks.
it's fun. I like getting in the kitchen a lot. So anytime I can do that, all the better. All right, that's about all the lettuce I need. So here is another trick. If you're not using a whole bunch at once, of course, put it in a plastic bag. But the other thing I'm going to put in that plastic bag is a piece of paper towel. And this is going to absorb any liquid that comes out of the leaves and stop them from getting all slimy. And you'll get about an extra 3 or 4 days, as well as getting all the air out. You'll get an extra 3 or 4 days out of your lettuce doing this.
So I guess that would be a trick for like spinach as well. Is
Yep.
that a way to make it last longer?
Have really anything green. I use it with peppers recently. A friend gave us a whole bunch of peppers out of their garden that they weren't going to use because they were too spicy. And so I did that, and I got a few extra days. Unfortunately, I still lost some because I let them sit too long. But the ones I used were tasty. All right. So I got that lime again. I'm not ready to use it. The rice isn't done, but we're going to go ahead and process it the rest of the way just so it's ready. So get it the most juice out of a lime. Take it and press down hard with the heel of your palm before you cut it in half. And then we'll do that later, and you'll see that it's a whole lot easier to juice because you're basically breaking all those membranes up inside there. And then our avocado, which, Michael, show them our avocado trees real quick. We like to propagate avocados, even though we never do a whole lot with them. Yeah, some of them aren't doing so hot, but we're going to see if we can, after 10 years, get an avocado. We'll see. Michael, you won't be in the house anymore by then. So I just took my avocado. You guys all pretty much know how to use an avocado, cut up an avocado now because, in an avocado toast, pretty much the rage. Stick my knife down under there. Do watch yourselves, know what you're doing. If you're not comfortable doing that, take the avocado, put it in a towel like that, and then do it with your knife. I'm pretty versed with my knife. I know where it's going. So I'm not gonna cut myself, at least as far as I know. And then I like to slice in here because the avocado skin is strong enough that it gives you just enough resistance. You're not going to cut into your hand when you're doing it very gently. Michael, how many more mise en place bowls do I have? Do I have enough to get me through?
Got a big stack.
Okay, I'm good.
I assume you mean the blue ones?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So for med students, when we're back in person and we start having our meals again, if you get those bowls that we do our catering from this one company that sends these clear bowls like you're getting soup at a Chinese restaurant, those are great meal planning bowls and mise en place bowls. So, start stealing those when the events are over. My entire cabinet is stocked full of them because no one else seems to take them.
This just in from med school financial counselor. Steal bowls when possible.
Only when everyone's done with them and they're about to throw them in the trash.
That is not what you said.
Can you show
just
them an
for the record.
example, Casey?
Yes, I can. I can show you what's left. See, I just made a whole bunch of broth.
Since everyone's been virtual and, some may not have had the bowls.
Yep, so these right here. They come in different sizes. I can never figure out what size is going to come that week. This actually, all my kids got cotton candy for a party they were at, and these make really good big bowls. So I've got all my broth and a bunch of those.
Actually, Epicurious noted them as one of the best storage containers.
They are, but I will tell you, they're pricey if you go to buy them. So I don't recommend purchasing them, but if someone's about to throw them out, take them and toss them in the dishwasher at home. They are dishwasher safe. And then, of course, if you're giving away leftovers or something, doesn't matter. You didn't pay for the Tupperware. All right. So a little bit of salt on my avocado, just because it tastes better. And to keep it from browning, a little bit of this lime juice. I don't measure most things, if you can tell. Especially something like this that's just meant to add a little bit of flavor and keep it from browning. All right, but that's our mise en place. That is all of our stuff except for our chicken. So now we get to the chicken. Now, key thing to remember, before you start your chicken, turn your pan on. Don't start cutting your chicken up until the pan is turned on so that it's going to be hot when you're ready for it. And I'm adding a little bit of oil to that because it's a Teflon pan. You don't want to add, or you don't want to heat it empty. You know, if you've got stainless steel, if you've got cast iron, those can be heated empty and they won't release any fumes. But Teflon, on the other hand, you need a little bit of something in it. All right. So there we go. We got a monster chicken breast, and as you can see, another one of those same bowls. I use them for everything. And I don't know, did any of you follow my my Facebook page? I posted on there last week that I walked into Costco and I found chicken breast, boneless, skinless, for $1 a pound. So not like on clearance or anything. It just happened to be one of their sales that week that I had missed when I was looking at the sales. And it's pretty good. I mean, they had taken the tenderloins off of this, so chicken tenders, because you know that's a really popular cut right now. So that means the boneless, skinless breast is getting cheaper and cheaper because it's not quite as desirable. This is also a cut that a lot of restaurants use, and since restaurants aren't getting a ton, or finer restaurants aren't getting a ton of business right now, that's driving the price down on these. Now, that said, there is a little bit of bone in here, so always check this. So you're going to want to cut that bone, little gristle out. I'm going to trash that because who wants to eat that? And, you know, same cutting motion, all of that. I'm keeping one hand as a dirty hand. The hand on my knife is my cleaner hand. I'm still going to wash both of them in a minute. But this way I can have a clean hand to turn the water on with. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Oh, Michael, show Lizzie real quick. Lizzie, say hi.
Hi, Lizzie.
Lizzie, did you hear her say hi? All right. And Kristen, you're getting nice, and Eliana's in here, everyone. Yeah, Declan's already made his appearance, Liz. All right. So I've got my pan heating up. I've got my spice mix that we had already made. I'm just adding it to it. You know, I will add a little bit of salt to this right when I put it on the heat because this spice mix doesn't have any salt in it. You need a little bit of salt. It really, you know, other than adding saltiness, it enhances all the other flavors. But now we're done with that, and I've got enough spice mix to last me a month or two. Oh, thank you, Michael. And we're just waiting on our oil. So it's still a little bit more viscous than I'd like. So when oil's ready, it'll shimmer in the pan if you've got a lot of it, but I don't have a ton. So you're looking for it to run like water. And the hotter it gets, the better it runs. So I'll use this chance to wash my hands. So what proteins is everyone making tonight?
Chicken. That's what my boys will eat.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
Chicken. Pollo. That's what my boys will eat.
Okay. Great. What about everyone else?
Husband's vegetarian, so we do a lot of Beyond Meat.
Okay. So do you guys go to Lidl to shop? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they've always got that on sale, especially if you've got the Lidl app. I've got some really good coupons for it right now.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. So, Michael, show the pan real quick. Just to test the temperature of it, I tossed something in, and you see I'm getting the bubbles right around there. You never want to throw anything into a cold pan. If you do that, you end up steaming your food. You don't get the browning on it. If you want to get really technical in cooking, that's called the Maillard reaction. I don't know if that applies to other things as well, but I'm just going to put it in there and let it sit for a minute. All right, so we've got chicken, we've got some Beyond Meat someone's cooking. I've actually got 4 different varieties of protein that I'm doing. 3 of them are chicken, just because I have that 5-pound pack. But here, I'll show you real quick. Michael, let me borrow that. So, of course, I got the chicken from the recipe, but I like how versatile this is. So I can come over here. This is kind of a take on our family's fiesta chicken. It's pinto beans, it's corn, it's chicken that I've cooked in there with a bunch of salsa. And over here, I've got kind of a chicken take on carnitas. So a lot of times I'll do this with pork, but I didn't have any Boston butt that I had cooked up for barbecue recently. And all that is chicken, it's chipotle and adobo sauce, a little bit of cider vinegar, and a little bit of taco seasoning. And then the last one is my vegetarian option, which would be a vegan option if I didn't use the stock in the rice. And it's kind of my go-to if I'm doing a meatless Mexican medley. It's corn, black beans, a little bit of cooked onion, and some taco seasoning. So a lot of options, pretty versatile. Change your rice to something else, and you've got a whole different meal. And now we just kind of wait. So what questions do y'all have? Keep them coming at me. It doesn't have to be about this recipe. It can be on anything.
So for that vegetarian one that you were showing, was that just like cooked in the crock pot? Did you saute anything? What was the prep like for that one?
The only thing I sauteed on the side was the onions because I wanted to get some brown on them, but everything else was cooked directly in the crock pot.
So for a medical student on a budget, what are sort of the staple spices that you always have in your pantry and use frequently? Because I feel like I struggle with that.
Okay. Well, here, so minced onion, definitely one I always use. Taco seasoning, which I just made, is one I always use. This one was a mistake. I don't use that much ground coriander. Garlic powder, use a ton of. There's some more taco seasoning. Jamaican jerk seasoning. I use that stuff on everything. But, probably not a staple for a medical student. I make a lot of chicken wings and whatnot. This is Montreal steak seasoning. It's great on everything as well. Little rosemary. Chili powder back there. And then, what's my last one? Oh, paprika. So if I'm looking at staples that I'm going to have in my kitchen, if I'm on a budget, it's going to be minced onion. It's going to be taco seasoning that I can make myself, and you guys just got the recipe for that. It's going to be garlic powder, some rosemary, some thyme, some basil, and some oregano. And then if I'm looking at my more sweet spices, I'll get up here in my other spice cabinet. I've got my cinnamon. I've got cloves around here somewhere. There you go, whole cloves. But I also have some ground cloves. We've been doing a lot of cooking lately. I have to find them. They're up there maybe somewhere. And that's kind of my go-tos. Other than that, I'm a huge fan of the garam masala from Pita House. So I'll go there and I'll get some spices if I'm looking for more of an Indian type spice or a Middle Eastern spice. And that's a good all-around non-yellow curry spice.
Casey, I'm glad you mentioned that because I've been wondering where you get garam masala. So
you can get it at other grocery stores, but it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Here, Michael, hold this. Let me get mine down. There you go. So this whole container, which is a good amount, is $3 at a store. If I go to another store, they're going to sell me this much, which is a little teeny tiny container, for $3 of garam masala.
that is very true. Thank you. That's a great suggestion.
And I will honestly, I use that stuff on everything. If you've got any okra fans in here, if you're not an okra fan, I recommend trying it this way. You may become a fan. Take your okra, slice it in half long ways. So you don't get the rings, you get the nice long cut in half. Toss it in a little bit of oil, some salt, and some garam masala, and then roast it at 425 till it gets crispy. It is the best snack ever. My family will go through 2 pounds of okra in one meal.
You're making me hungry.
And if you plant okra, it actually grows really prolifically down here in South Carolina. So, good thing to plant in the spring leading into summer. And you'll have a bumper crop all year. All right. Chicken's about cooked through. So I'm going to add my onions. And again, I cut them 2 different ways. It's just a different texture thing. You can cut them all one way just for simplicity's sake. And add a little bit of salt. So it is important to season a little bit at every stage. I keep, honestly, a little container of salt on the side of my kitchen so I can just pull out a pinch here and there as I'm going through. And it just seems to make for a better meal when you're seasoning it all different points. And we're back to letting it cook. What other questions do y'all have? Okay, so Dr. Ribbon says sage is useful. I will completely agree, especially on chicken dishes. And right now you can find it everywhere. Let me see if I can find mine. No,
I'm currently obsessed with smoked paprika. I put it on everything. I don't know if you guys ever use that. I love it.
Smoked paprika is amazing.
Yeah.
And
I put it on everything too. I love smoked paprika. But Russell just told me he hates smoked paprika.
I like sweet paprika.
He likes sweet paprika.
Sweet paprika.
Divorce.
So does Russell like anything else that's smoked flavored?
Russell, do you like anything else that's smoked flavored?
I mean, I like. You mean like spices or like I like barbecue?
Yeah, do you like Chipotle?
Oh, yeah, I like Chipotle.
So if anyone doesn't know what Chipotle is, it's basically just a jalapeno that's been allowed to ripen to where it's red, dried out and smoked, and then rehydrated with water. So that's Chipotle and adobo. The dried pepper is Chipotle. So it's got that really good smoked flavor. That's why I actually added it to my taco seasoning here, so I get a little bit of that as well.
I did not know that. My only experience with Chipotle was the Tabasco seasoning, the Chipotle Tabasco sauce, which is really good.
I put that in my baked beans.
One time I put too much in mine.
Yeah, Michael is a bit of a hot sauce fiend. So if you like hot sauces, he's the one to talk to in this family. He and I both, actually. Russell, I still have to admit, I'm a little stuck on you not liking smoked paprika. That's just sad.
It's because of an association that I have where back in college I made goulash and I worked really hard on it. I spent like 8 hours. I was home all day on like a Saturday or something like that. I'm going to make this banging goulash that I had learned how to make because I was in Hungary once and had goulash and it was amazing. I was like, I'm going to make this for Holly. This would be so good. And it was like January. It was perfect. So it's hours making this goulash. And technically, you should have different paprikas. And actually, none of them they don't typically use more paprika. But that's all I had, so that's what I used. And when Holly finally had it,
It's not my proudest moment.
she said, "Wow, this tastes like Chef Boyardee ravioli."
No, SpaghettiOs.
Whatever, SpaghettiOs. She said, "This tastes like SpaghettiOs," and she was so excited. She was like, "I never got to have SpaghettiOs growing up. Like, it's a good thing." I was like, "No, I don't think you got to have SpaghettiOs growing up." So I just have that association with smoked paprika, even though it's not smoked paprika's fault. That's just the association. Every time I taste smoked paprika now, I just feel
Dejected.
misplaced dreams.
Fair enough. All right, well, this is almost done on the chicken. I'm just pouring my extra chili powder in here. You don't need to show that, Mike. So now it's not all hot chili powder. Now it's slightly less hot chili powder. Oh yeah, by the way, entirely random, but if we're talking salt, well, you do need to get iodine in your diet. A really good coarse ground kosher salt is the way to go for cooking. Not for your table, but for cooking.
I have a question about for a large family.
I'm sorry?
I have a question about cooking for a large family.
Go for it.
Lots of experience. Just knowing, I guess, I always either cook way too much or it's really good and everybody's like, oh, I want more, and there's not enough left. So how do you plan it?
I tend to go for the more because my family's really good about eating leftovers. And since we're also a homeschool family, they're home for lunch. So eating it the next day, the leftovers don't really last all that long. But tonight, if you want to think about it, I did 5 pounds of chicken. And if you look at a proper 4-ounce serving, so we're looking at 20 servings of chicken. Now, I didn't make enough rice for 20 servings because, I can make rice anytime. It's super quick, super easy. But the chicken, I didn't that much because I wanted to showcase just how many different ways you can do this, and there's still even plenty more. But I go for the route of more, and then we'll just eat it up. Now, I will say right now, because we're coming off of Thanksgiving meals, my side of the family and my wife's side of the family, space in the fridge is a bit of a premium, so we're gonna have to be creative in how we fit everything that's left over into the fridge tonight. But if you think about proper serving size, you've got 4 ounces of meat. So that's, if you look on your hand, that's kind of the palm of your hand. It's a deck of cards, and meat that's not shredded or broken up. With a meal like tacos or nacho bowls, you can actually get away with even less than that because you've got so many other things going into it. So you can stretch that even further, or you can do what I did with the fiesta chicken, which is add beans to it. Then you would want 4 ounces of total protein. Kind of the play method that they're doing at USDA right now. I think it's the USDA. But anyhow, so 4 ounces of that. You want a fist size, at least, of kind of your green leafy vegetables. You want a palmful of your grains. So that's about a half a cup of our rice that we've got here today. And then you want a little bit of fruit as well. Now, they're going to put dairy on there, but I'm going to kind of go the route of saying that that's probably from the dairy lobby more than the fact that you need dairy in your diet. You don't. And I can't stand drinking milk unless we're talking like Happy Cow chocolate milk, which is the best thing on earth.
Don't forget strawberry.
The strawberry's good too. All right. So I've got my beans. Just opened them up. Now I'm going to rinse them. Who knows why I'm rinsing them?
You remove any salt and starch.
Mainly the salt is what I'm thinking about here, because I've already added, I'm controlling how much salt I have in the meal. Now, this doesn't, of course, wash out all of it, but it does get off a large portion of the salt. And the beans are in, so I'm cutting the heat off.
So what do you think about just buying unsalted beans? Is there a reason that you buy the salted version and then wash them?
I haven't actually seen unsalted beans. I've seen no salt added in different vegetables. but I just haven't seen beans. If I could find those, I would use those instead.
Casey, where are the peppers? I thought we sauteed those with chicken.
Oh, sorry, this is a Casey move here. I hate peppers, but my wife likes them and she likes them raw. So
Okay.
Onions. I'm sorry about that. This is
But otherwise, you would put them in with the onions before the chicken?
Yep.
The chicken, then the onions?
Then the onions and the peppers will go in at the same time.
Okay.
And then right at the very end, the beans.
Gotcha.
And I'll admit, it looks a lot prettier, the peppers. I just don't like them.
Mom can probably do them soon.
All right.
Fun fact.
Yeah, don't serve me things with peppers in it.
I feel like your distaste for pepper is a lot more limited than my distaste for smoked paprika.
Fair enough, Russell. We all have our things that we don't like. All right, so I've got my rice. The rice is all done. You know, you can fluff it, you can do whatever. And it's got actually kind of got a good color to it from all the cumin and the broth that we use. Which, by the way, if you don't have a compost bin, you can save all of your vegetable scraps and use that to make a veggie broth, or to add to bones if you're going to make a bone broth. You're going to want to add that at the very end, though. We, on the other hand, have a big old set of compost bins.
Veggie broth.
What, Michael?
Make the veggie broth.
Michael wants to know how we make a veggie broth. Basically, you take a whole bunch of vegetables and you toss it in cold water with a little bit of salt and whatever spices you want to add. I would just probably go pepper and thyme and rosemary, the kind of woodsy spices. And then I would bring it up to a simmer and let it cook for about 2 hours. Then I'd strain all my veggies out because you've gotten all the flavor out that you're going to get. And then I'd start reducing it down a little bit. So I'd still keep it on a simmer. I'd leave it uncovered, and I'd let it go probably overnight on that. I did a little experiment this Thanksgiving because I knew I was doing 2 turkeys. So 2 batches of broth. And it is true that if you boil your broth, you're going to get a cloudy broth. It actually apparently emulsifies the oils and whatnot. But if you keep it at no more than a simmer, your broth is going to come out almost crystal clear, other than the color of whatever you added. So you get kind of browner broth with beef, or kind of a golden colored broth with turkey or chicken. All right. But I've got my spices in here. The cumin I cooked in it. The lime I just added. You know, if you like cilantro, by all means, you could have added that in earlier. You can add some fresh cilantro now. And this is a discussion we've had in the office before on how much it tastes like soap to some of us, and you know, eating soap doesn't taste good. But y'all, that's the meal. And with all of our toppings and everything on the side, it's kind of versatile, so everyone can have whatever they want on it. So I'll make mine. Oh, no, I didn't make one thing. So I got to show you something that we make at our house, and don't tell Dr. Chuck about it because it's not the healthiest thing. But we call it crema, which is not, it's not a true crema from Mexico. Theirs is, you know, they wouldn't start with sour cream, which is what I'm doing here. It's more of a, it's like sour cream, but it's a little more viscous. It has a little more runny. Slightly different flavor, but it's still kind of a cultured milk product. And so I'm going to take some of this sour cream. I'm not doing all of it, Michael. That'd be too much. A good amount. I'm going to add some sugar. We've got just our little coffee sugar thing, get a little bit extra sugar. And this is maybe 1.5 cups of sour cream, about 3 tablespoons of sugar, and then some more of this lime juice. And we're probably not half a cup, we're probably about 1/4 cup of lime juice. And we're just going to slowly mix that in so you get the consistency of crema. You've got kind of this sweet lime crema. It goes great on almost any Mexican dish. What other spices? So Dr. Ripken said sage. What other spices would you guys say are the necessities in your house? Yeah, this is the cool thing. We've got folks on here from different cultural backgrounds, so I'm curious to hear what you say.
You just say me?
I'm sorry?
Did you, whose name did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, we've got everyone on here comes from somewhat of a cultural background. My family's Italian, so my spice leans heavily towards the garlic. But we all have our own backgrounds here.
I use turmeric like it's candy. I don't have any ethnic connection to turmeric, but I use turmeric and ginger a lot on sweet potatoes because I cook sweet potatoes a whole lot, like for frittatas and stuff. So I use, yep. So I use those two. I use those with like every other dish that I cook. I'm using turmeric and or ginger.
Now, let me ask, are you a fresh ginger or a dried ginger fan?
Fresh ginger if I have it, but I don't normally have it.
Okay, it's super cheap and it keeps it.
Oh. I did not know that it did that. How long does it take?
I've got a bunch in the freezer right now.
Do you just shred it out of the freezer, or do you have to let it thaw first?
I would thaw it just a little bit, and then I'm going to take a spoon and just scrape off the skin of what I need, and I'll use my microplane or my grater or even my knife if it's thawed out enough to grate it into whatever I'm doing. Honestly, I find that with the grater, when it's frozen, it almost melts into the recipes that you're doing.
So I grind mine and then I push it in like little ice cube things and then freeze them. So then you just pop them out and you just stick them straight in the pan. And then you just already have your like chopped garlic. I mean, I do it with garlic too, or ginger.
That's awesome. I'm the only one on here that has.
What did you say?
So without a smoker, what I do with garlic is I'll get like a whole few heads of garlic and I'll clean them all at once, and I will roast them in the oven, covered up with a little bit of olive oil, so you've got nice roasted garlic that you can add to anything. When I'm doing it in the smoker, honestly, I think it tastes even better.
Oh, I just thought of a must-have spice. Have you guys ever tried Spike?
What was that?
Have you ever tried Spike?
No, I've never heard of this.
So it's a seasoning salt that you can put on any vegetable, and it makes it amazing. Kids love it, but it's so simple. Look for it first.
Okay, I might have to try that. All right.
Casey, can you go over how you made the sour cream / crema?
Oh yeah. So it's literally 3 ingredients. It's about, and again, I don't measure, so I'll end up tasting it and maybe tweaking it a little bit. But it's probably about 1.5 cups sour cream, about 3 tablespoons of sugar, and about 1/4 cup of lime. And I just mix it up until it's, it's also by how you do it. So if you like it more sour, you add more lime juice. If you get a little bit more sweet, you add a little bit more sugar. More creamy. I don't like the taste of sour cream on its own, but this makes sour cream really, really good to me. And, it's like a much more runny sour cream at this point with a whole lot more flavor.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's a staple. We pretty much always have that in our cabinet because we use it on everything Mexican or Central American. We've gotten into making arepas in the last year, and so we'll use it on things with that, and just a whole lot of different options. All right, but we get a few more spoons out for my toppings, but guys, that's the meal. That's pretty quick and easy, and but less than an hour, we've got dinner for really 20 people. Or 20 meals in your freezer if you're a med student that needs to hold off on that.
It's 4 meals.
That's 4 meals. Who said that?
Oh, oops.
Avery, that's 5 pounds of chicken. If you're doing that in 4 meals, we got to talk about your spending.
I gotta get my protein in.
Well, that's why you got your beans in there too.
Good point.
And since you've got your beans and your rice, you've got a complete protein right there. So, and also, the beans will stretch that out a little bit further so that you can get more meals out of it. All right, y'all. What other questions does anyone have? Otherwise, we can let you get to eating. And Michael's hungry too. All righty. I'm not hearing anything. So, Kristen, thanks for hosting this.
That was great. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Casey and Michael.
Yeah, Michael, thank you for being a good cameraman this whole time. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.